Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the new Reign of the Warlock unique items. And this one is called Dreadfang. Dreadfang is in a legend sword, which is actually one of the faster elite bases for the two-handed variety, which means that you won't be able to put this on your Act 5 Frenzy Mercenary. I know, boo-hoo. You could potentially put it on the Act 5 two-handed Mercenary, though, which is an interesting choice. This one is got some very nice mods on it, and it has 33% chance to cast level 3 Amplify damage, which is amazing. It's going to be always up. I don't even think you're going to have any issue with that. Amplify damage, of course, reduces the monster's resistances by physical resistance by 100%, which makes it much easier to kill them. And if they are immune to physical, it is cut by 1/5, so it ends up being negative 20%, which is still pretty darn good. All in all, it's essentially a way that you can have permanent uptime on Amplify damage at any given time. It has 33% increased attack speed, which seems like an odd number, but the Legend Fang is the fastest base of all the two-handed swords. So I guess that probably is specific for a reason. 33% increased attack speed means it's going to swing pretty quick. It's going to be a fast blade. It also has 149% enhanced. Now, I do believe that varies between, I have the numbers here, 133 to 166. Now, of course, it having low enhanced damage isn't necessarily too big of an issue since it literally has permanent uptime on amp, so it could be a very fun one. I think this is actually could be a really interesting one to use alongside of like like an ethereal version with like a Zodroot in it could be really powerful, I think. And then it also has 33% bonus to attack rating, which is always nice because you want to make sure you're connecting your hits. And as far as I'm aware, all of the Warlock abilities do require attack rating, including Mirrored Blades. I tested it. 5% mana stolen per hit, which is always nice to have because then you don't have to get it on a ring. And then 33% Deadly Strike, which is a chance to deal double damage. Now, Deadly Strike does in fact stack together with Critical Strike, but in a very odd way. Essentially, how it works is as long as one succeeds, then they both succeed, essentially. So you get double damage. So, like, imagine you have 2 coins and you flip the 2 coins. That's basically how it works. And as long as one lands head, you win, even if the other lands tails. So, if you have crit and Deadly Strike together, they both roll, and as long as one succeeds, you're okay. And that's going to obviously double your damage again, which is kind of crazy because you got the amplified damage doubling your damage, and then you got the crit deadly strike doubling your damage. And if you throw the ethereal in there, you double your damage again, pretty much. And it's all very beautiful. It seems to be based around Mirrored Blades as well, which has +3 to Mirrored Blades, Warlock only. And then it does have the negative 33% requirements, which is kind of crazy, especially considering that the Warlock already has Levitation Mastery, which also gives him a large amount of negative requirements on your weapons. Which do be aware that negative requirements only applies to you. It doesn't apply to your mercenaries. We've already had several people complain and be like, "Oh, my mercenary can't equip the bow, but he says she has enough requirements." No, you have enough requirements. Your mercenary doesn't, which is actually kind of silly when you're trying to like put an item on a merc, and it's weird. I never had anything that has like a base negative requirements like that. Now, obviously, this sword has some really nice implications. It's actually one of the first, I believe it's actually the first, really like stable and steady supply of amplified damage. There have been other ways to get amp procs in the past, but most of them have been inconsistent or not actually applying, like to a large enough area, or they don't last long enough because they're a really short like level of the ability. But level 3 amplified damage at a 33% chance is going to go off all the time, which means that you're going to have permanent uptime of amplified damage with this sword, which makes this sword really good for like any character that's using physical damage. Like you could be a paladin using like a two-handed sword. You could be a barbarian. You could be a warlock, obviously. You could also potentially use this on a druid for like a melee build, or even a druid for like a thorns or a summon build. Honestly, the possibilities are endless for this particular sword because it just has a lot of good usefulness. The only real downside to this sword is its low base damage, which could be fixed by finding an ethereal version and zodding it. Or if you're using an ability like Blade Fury that doesn't burn durability, or you're using an ability like Echoing Strike, which doesn't burn durability, you could potentially use the ethereal version without a Zodrid in it. Do be aware, though, that Echoing Strike does not proc Amplify damage. It doesn't proc anything. I did a test on it, and I tried to get it to proc on striking and on attack, and it was unable to proc any of it. So while this is a very interesting blade, it's going to have some really interesting uses within the game for physical damage characters. And I think that a lot of people are going to work this into their build somehow, either on a mercenary, spamming amplify damage, or they're going to use it themselves, or potentially maybe even make an iron golem out of it or something. You could potentially use a barbarian and make iron golems out of dread fangs, so you get like free amp from the iron golem, and then beef up the iron golem for your runs. Of course, the necromancer wouldn't need it because the necromancer already has amplify damage. All in all, just a really good weapon. You can socket it. You can put some stuff in it. What would I probably put in it? What it really needs is enhanced damage. If you have the non-ethereal version, you would probably put an Ohm Rune or a 1540 in this to increase the base on-weapon enhancement to make the weapon stronger. The ethereal version, it would most likely be a Zod Rune if you're actually going to use it on a skill that burns durability. If you're not going to use it on a skill that burns durability, it would go back toward the Ohm Rune or the 1540 to enhance the base damage of the weapon, which would be pretty massive. The +3 Mirrored Blades is interesting. I'm not exactly sure what to think about that. Mirrored Blades is an interesting ability, and it does have some interesting like modifiers, like the damage modifier and the attack speed modifier. But it doesn't have any attack rating. It doesn't have any additional damage. I mean, you're basically +3 Mirrored Blades is only really going to give you a small amount of enhancement and a little bit of attack speed, which I guess makes the Legend Sword even faster. It's a neat addition. It'll be nice to try and finally find an ethereal version of this. And what we can do is we can calculate out the ethereal damage real quick, because I know you guys would probably like to see that. So let's calculate what the ethereal damage of the weapon would be at its maximum value. So if we have a two-handed version, which is 94 top end, and then we add 50% to that, which is the ethereal status. So that's going to bring us to 141. And then with the maximum enhanced damage of 166, so 166%, we would be at 375 for the top end on this sword, which isn't really like particularly that high since it's one of the lower damage bases. It's a faster lower damage base. But I mean, considering that it has permanent uptime on amp and also fairly decent amount of Deadly Strike, which you could easily augment to get permanent uptime on Deadly Strike, I imagine it's probably going to smack pretty damn hard. Legend Swords look like a this, if you wanted to know what it looked like. It's kind of like a, like a claymore a little bit, kind of what it looks like. Freedom. A little Braveheart. As always, I appreciate you guys and gals watching. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you're interested in more of these videos, because I will be doing lots of them. And as always, keep watching.